You're in an elevator with a stranger. The doors close. Nobody speaks. 10 seconds pass, and it feels like 10 minutes. You check your phone. You study the floor numbers like they're the most fascinating thing you've ever seen. But the real answer for why you feel this way is far stranger than simple awkwardness. Your brain isn't being polite. It's running a survival program that's older than language itself. Think about the last time silence made you uncomfortable. Maybe it was a first date where the conversation dried up. Maybe it was a work meeting where nobody said anything after a hard question. Your chest got tight. Your mind started racing for something, anything, to fill the gap. Why does quiet feel like danger? To understand this, you have to go back. Not decades, not centuries, hundreds of thousands of years, to a time when your ancestors lived in small bands on the open savanna, surrounded by predators, with no walls and no locks and no one coming to save them. In that world, sound was information, constant low-level sound from voices, footsteps, rustling, breathing, meant the group was intact. It meant you weren't alone. Silence meant something had changed. A predator nearby. A member of the group who had wandered off, or worse, been taken. For your ancestors, sudden quiet wasn't peaceful, it was a warning. The anthropologist Robin Dunbar has spent decades studying how early humans held their groups together, and his research points to something surprising. Talking for early humans wasn't just about exchanging information. It functioned the way grooming does for other primates. It was social glue. Constant low-level chatter told everyone in the group, "I'm here, you're safe, we're still a unit." When that chatter stopped, the group's sense of safety stopped with it. So your discomfort with silence isn't random. It's an inherited alarm system. But here's where it gets stranger. It's not just that silence signals absence. Your brain treats it like something closer to rejection. And rejection, to an ancient human, wasn't an emotional inconvenience. It was a death sentence. A person exiled from the group thousands of years ago had no chance alone against the elements, against predators, against starvation, which is why your brain evolved to treat social exclusion as one of the worst things that can happen to you, on par with physical injury. The psychologist Naomi Eisenberger tested this directly. In her research using a simple ball-tossing game called cyberball, she had participants play catch with two other players inside a brain scanner. Partway through, the other two players stopped throwing the ball to the participant. They were left out. And when Eisenberger looked at the brain activity, the region that lit up wasn't some vague emotional center. It was the same region that activates during physical pain. Being excluded doesn't just feel bad. Your brain processes it almost identically to being hurt. Now hold that thought next to silence. When a room goes quiet, especially a silence that feels pointed or unexplained, your brain doesn't just register absence of noise. It runs a background check. Am I being frozen out? Did I say something wrong? Is the group turning on me? You're not consciously thinking any of this, but the same ancient circuitry that once protected your ancestors from being left behind on the savannah is quietly firing in a Tuesday afternoon meeting. That's the twist. Silence isn't neutral. Your brain has never learned how to treat it as neutral, because for most of human history, it usually wasn't. There's a second layer to this, and it's even harder to sit with. It's not just other people's silence that unsettles you, it's your own mind in silence, left alone with itself. In 2014, the psychologist Timothy Wilson ran a study at the University of Virginia that revealed something almost absurd about the modern brain. He asked participants to sit alone in a room with nothing to do for just 15 minutes. No phone, no book, just their own thoughts. Many people found it unbearable. In one version of the study, participants were given the option to give themselves a mild electric shock rather than sit quietly with nothing but their thoughts. and a significant number of them chose the shock. Read that again. People chose physical pain over unstructured silence. Why would a species built on introspection, on memory, on planning, find its own quiet mind so intolerable? Because for most of your evolutionary history, quiet reflection wasn't a luxury you could afford. Stillness and silence meant vigilance. It meant scanning for threats, not drifting into daydreams. A mind that relaxed too deeply into stillness was a mind that might miss the sound of something approaching. Your ancestors who stayed alert during quiet moments were more likely to survive. Their descendants inherited that same restlessness. That's you. So when silence falls, whether it's in a room with other people or inside your own head, your nervous system doesn't interpret it as rest. It interprets it as a gap that needs to be filled, watched, or explained. This is why you reach for your phone the second a conversation lulls. It's why background noise, a podcast, a TV playing in another room, feels comforting even when you're not really listening. It's why silence in a relationship, an unanswered text, a partner who's gone quiet can spiral into anxiety far out of proportion to what's actually happening. Your brain isn't overreacting by some modern standard. It's reacting exactly the way it was built to, using a threat detection system designed for a world of predators and small, fragile tribes. Here's the part that should change how you think about it. Modern silence is almost never actually dangerous. The quiet elevator, the pause in conversation, the empty room, none of it threatens your survival the way it once would have. But your nervous system hasn't been updated. It's still running ancient software on a completely different operating environment. Knowing this doesn't make the discomfort disappear instantly, but it does something almost as useful. It gives you a way to name what's happening in the moment. That tightness in your chest during an awkward silence isn't a character flaw. It isn't proof that something's wrong. It's a few 100,000 years of survival instinct, misfiring in a world that no longer needs it. Some researchers even suggest that our discomfort with silence explains why we consume so much constant noise now, why the world has filled itself with notifications, autoplay videos, and background music in nearly every public space. We've built an entire environment to avoid the very thing our ancestors feared, and in doing so, we may have lost something: the ability to simply sit. To let a pause be a pause, to trust that quiet doesn't mean danger. So the next time you're in that elevator, or that meeting, or lying awake with nothing but your own thoughts, remember what's actually happening. You're not weak, you're not socially broken, you're carrying a warning system built for a world that no longer exists, still faithfully doing its job. You're in an elevator with a stranger. The doors close, nobody speaks, and this time, you notice something different. The silence isn't empty. It's full of everyone who came before you, still listening for danger that isn't there.